Hello again, my friends, and you are my friends, and welcome to your Sunday's Talking Town, back at its 1:30 slot. I'm, of course, your host, the Gov, here to guide you through the twists, the turns, the spills, the thrills, the loud opinions that is football. And we've got some transfer speculation to kick us off with. Then we'll go into some town top goal scorer, player of the year, league position, and then we have the most opinionated man in world football, self-proclaimed. And you might think, but Rich is already on, because he is obviously normally the most opinionated man in world football. But no, it is Chris Hall, our West Brom correspondent, here to give us the lowdown on everything West Brom, and then go through the championship season with us, top six, bottom three, dark horses, and everything else in between. Before I go any further, though, I just want to say a quick positive vibes, good vibes, and I want you all, hopefully at home, whether you're watching live or on catch up, to join in with me here, because Milk Tray Man Ben, his little boy, isn't too well at the moment, so I want to give a shout out to the family. We're thinking of you, we're with you, and if we can get a load of blue hearts, whether in the comments or in the live chat, in fact both, please can we do so. And of course to Matty Phillips, who was supposed to be with us today but sadly won't be, but we are going to be doing a special encore presentation tomorrow evening, time to be decided, but we'll let you know on that one. So positive vibes to both families there. Lots of comments coming in, as you can imagine, live on a Sunday, 30th of July. Christian Walton in the headlines, potentially linked with a move to Luton. That's dominating the chat at the moment. Moby says, why would he go there? One season in the Premier League, and that's assuming his first choice. Then after, he's almost certainly in a worse position than staying with us. Whereas the Fisherman says, why would he not want to? It's a chance to play in the Premier League. Ipswich Jules talks of Luton being interested in Walton. AD Croucher here, the Stone Market legend, is in the room. Love it. Crispy Teabag, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Crispy. Hope you're well. Craig Chapman, afternoon all. Hope you've had a wonderful weekend so far. Roll on next Sunday. Absolutely. And Craig this week became a Talking Town fifth stander by heading to our Ko-Fi site. He signs up, $4.99 a month. Thank you very much, Craig. We appreciate that. And you can follow his excellent lead by hitting the link, going to our YouTube page, hitting the join button, or heading to Ko-Fi and signing up, or by using one of these to scan that QR code right there. I have tried it before we went live. It does work. It does take you directly where you need to get to, and that supports the platform and will allow us to continue building on what has been a fantastic couple of years, following the club in League One and now into the big, well, not the big time, but the semi-big time. You know, it's the final dress rehearsal before we eventually get ourselves back at the big table, right? Yeah, we agree on that. And if you can, of course, hit the like button, I would appreciate it. Right. I have got, as I say, Rich joining me this afternoon, Chris from West Brom. But let's get through I've got loads of blue hearts. Absolutely love to see that. Stephen Parry is excited to see who the new signings will be and love to get some before the open day, which, of course, is next week. Gavin Law, Walton wouldn't go to Luton, put the ball out of the net. Tin Pot Luton. That is Premier League Luton there, Gavin, that you are talking about. But, of course, the other goalkeeper linked with Luton is a West Brom goalkeeper. So it's really good we've got Chris on the show. We can get the lowdown on what he thinks in regards to Luton and the goalkeeper situation. Does he feel that his own goalkeeper is off? Does he feel maybe Christian Walton may be the preferred choice? That's going to be great, and we'll get that through the course of the show. I am just waiting for Rich. I am going to be honest. I am stalling for a little bit of time here. Craig, it was long overdue. Absolutely, but you've done it. Follow his lead. Head to Ko-Fi. Right, we are ready, ladies and gentlemen. So let's bring in our most opinionated man in world football, the Cruncher, Richard Moss.
You're talking utter fucking.
There he is, having his lunch.
You got me in a sandwich.
Not my fault, mate.
I've literally been in the house 10 minutes, mate. 10 minutes.
Yeah, so have I.
So
have I. I'm okay. Yeah, not too bad. Busy chat. Love to see a busy chat. And we're going to get, hopefully, lots of comments coming in, and particularly their top 6, bottom 3, etc., as we go through the course of the show. But I think we've got to kick things off with the Christian Walton link, because Alan Nixon reporting that Christian Walton is on a list of potential targets for Premier League Luton. What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? What's your ITK senses telling you on this one, Mr. Moss?
Well, I know a lot of people will say, why would you go to Luton? And I get that, Martin. But then I heard you say about Luton? Mike's comment. And yeah, you've got to take Mike's comment on board, because it's a Premier League team. When do players get the chance to play in the Premier League? Not very often. And we can all say, yeah, Town are going to go there. But nobody knows, do they?
No.
Nobody knows what we're going to do.
Absolutely not.
We might not get there for 3 or 4 years. Christian Walton, how old is he, Martin? 27?
Yeah. Well, now sort of entering the peak traditionally for a goalkeeper. I suppose a peak is around 30 for a goalkeeper. But yeah, he is 27, born on November the 9th, 1995, according to Wikipedia. So there we go. What are your thoughts on that one then, Rich?
Yeah. So yeah, it's. I don't think he'll go, but I don't think people should just poo-poo it and say, "Oh, it's Luton Town. He won't go."
If he does go,
Luton, they'll only be in the Premier League for one season. Yeah, they're in the Premier League. They're in the Premier League, and Town are in the Championship. So let's realise where we are at the minute.
If he does go, Rich, what's his valuation going to be? Do you feel?
2 or 3 million.
Yeah. It's a player trading model, certainly. You picked him up for less than that. You'd be moving him on for more. Would you be confident with Hladky as your number one, or would you be looking to go and get? I know Mike wants Mike Cooper, for example, from Plymouth.
No, if Walton did happen to move on, we would need to replace him. Who that would be, I don't know, but I don't think he'll move on.
All right, moving on to Ipswich Town. Bits and pieces before I said nits and pieces. Before we bring in Chris, Player of the Year. That could be similar to a top goal scorer. That could be different. Often it's the same as it was, I believe, last year with Chaplin. But who's your Player of the Year going to be for next year? What's that prediction, Mr. Moss?
Player of the Year, right? So Chaplin last season, Wes Burns season before.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not forget James Wilson, one Player of the Year for Town, centre half.
Yeah, we'll see him twice next year. Will we see him twice next year? Is he still at Plymouth?
No, he's left. He's gone to Bristol Rovers.
Oh, there you go. Won't see him twice next year, though. Never mind.
So, would it be an attacking player? Possibly, because I think we'll do fairly well. But he is an attacking player, but he is a defender. I'm going to go Leif Davis.
Leif Davis. All right. I've gone with Craig in the chat. I've gone for Nathan Broadhead. If he can stay fit, I think he'll be a really exciting, excellent player next year for us.
But we hope, don't we, that we do well when there'll be lots of candidates, Martin, up for the award, which it was. I know Chaplin won it this past season, but there was several players who had outstanding seasons, and on other days they could have won it. But it's always going to go to probably the person who gets. When you get 26 league goals?
Yeah.
You can be unlucky if you don't win it. But look, Leif Davis last season, with the amount of assists he gets, I think he's personally our best player. And I think if he shines this season, and if Town don't get out this league, I know a lot of people think we might get promoted. I think he might be moving on next summer if he has an outstanding season, because people will be looking at him because he done really well last season. Obviously, come from Leeds. People are probably thinking now, right, you're making a step up. Can you do that? But we've only seen Aaron Cresswell. Look at Cresswell that come from Tranmere. Made the leap to West Ham, and he's played, 400 Premier League games, right? And you actually think Leif is going to be a better player, don't you?
I actually do. Yeah, the very first time I saw him, within the first few weeks, I said, this is going to be a better player than Cresswell. And I do firmly believe that. I do. I do genuinely still hold on to that thought. A lot of people in the chat saying Raheem Harper reminded me of my prediction a couple of years ago. So I hope I've not cursed Nathan Broadhead. Top goal scorer. before we go to position, then bring Chris in. Top goal scorer.
Where's he gone to now? He's gone to Burton, hasn't he? Raheem Harper?
Burton. Raheem Harper, yeah. He'll have a great year there, I think. I think he'll go and shine.
Top goal scorer, right. So, Chaplin, 26. I'd be amazed if anyone got in the 20s for Town this season. I think it'll be a case of probably sharing the goals around, I would have thought.
Yeah.
I'll probably stick my neck out.
Always do.
I will go for... I don't think it'll be Freddie the Dapo, because I don't think he'll end the season at Town. I think he'll move on, possibly in January. I think we'll get another striker in. It could be the new striker, but I will go for Nathan Broadhead.
Nathan Broadhead, top goal scorer.
Yeah, I think look, if he can stay fit, but he's what did he get last year when he came in? 8 goals, didn't he? I think he got 6 assists. And he's going to be playing most of the games. I think he'll probably hit 15 goals. If he hits 15, I think we'll share the goals out across them front positions. I think Chaplin will probably hit double figures again.
Yeah.
George Hurst,
he's my shout.
He's an unknown. Like I said on Friday's show, he's one where you need him to score, get an early goal to take that pressure off. Like I said, because he's not scored a goal in the Championship in 40 appearances, I think.
Yeah.
Across 2 loans. So, yeah, Broadhead, but you never know. We might be sitting here in 2 or 3 weeks' time and we might have made a major signing in the front position. You might think, oh, blimey.
Might want to done, but as things stand, I'm going to go with George Hurst. I think he's in, fine form in the pre-season. It is only pre-season, but I think he fits the system. Really suits the McKenna style. Press from the front, hold the ball up. I really like him, and I that would be my shout for top goal scorer, George Hurst. Gabriel Sutton has us finishing in 9th with his Championship prediction. I'm not going to ask you for your actual position, but I'm going to ask you: is it in the top 6? Yes or no? And then we'll bring Chris in. Is it in the top 6? It's not.
No. Okay. Not at the minute. Not as we stand at the minute with the squad we've got. This is the thing. We could sit at the end of the window, Martin, and we might have 2 or 3 more signings that come into the first team. What Mark Ashton said, didn't he? He said there's players that they're looking at. He actually said that to go into the first team. So we might sit here in a month's time and think, oh, yeah, we've made some good signings there. We are actually stronger. But at the minute, as the squad sits at the minute, because it's virtually the same. Jack Taylor, came in. Amari Hutchinson. I know a lot of people are raving about it. I've seen people, I think it was on Not the Top 20, they're doing a poll like your best summer signing, and people are saying Amari Hutchinson. He's played 2 sub appearances to Chelsea, and I know he's very highly rated, Martin, but he's a young kid, and I think, like I said Friday as well, don't expect too much too soon of him. Don't put too much pressure on him. No, he might put pressure on himself to perform, but as fans, you've got to understand this is his first senior loan move. It'll take him a while probably to get his feet. I probably think he'll be off the bench for the first few games, and he might end up to be a fantastic signing. We all hope he does, but let's just pump the brakes a little bit on him.
Absolutely. I think he's an explosive player, he's an exciting player.
Yeah.
But he's a raw player, and he'll have his ups and his downs and the learning curve of football. Very quickly, as it just came in, Norman, if we sign a marquee centre back this week, would you play him on Sunday? Because you've not been impressed so far with the Town transfer window, have you? It's been a mild one for you.
It's a bit underwhelming when like we said, like Hurst was probably nailed on, and so was Jack Taylor. So you've signed Hutchinson and you signed a 3rd choice goalkeeper. And I know, and I do agree with Mark Ashton. It has been quite slow, the window. If you look across the board, there's not a lot of movement, and it's only 30th of July. We've still got another month to go, so it all might kick in, and you have to wait until obviously the Premier League they name their squads, and then it's like a domino effect sometimes, isn't it? You get one moves and then it all falls into place. But at the minute, a little bit underwhelmed. If we get 2 or 3 signings in, I think we'll all be happy with that. And then I think that might push us to the next level, because I think at the minute, this is the reason I wouldn't put us in the top 6 at the minute. I think we've got a good starting 11. I don't think we've got the squad depth at the minute. And if 2 or 3 injuries in key positions at the minute, Martin, would hurt us. So if we can get them players in, Mike the Fisherman, would I take Clark Harris? No, Mike. not a championship.
No, not now. Absolutely not now. Right.
Good goal scorer, but I don't think he wouldn't fit the mould of what Town play and the style we play. It doesn't work hard enough for me.
All right. Perfect. Well, I'll ask you for Sam position in a little bit. But joining us now is the most opinionated man in world football, self-proclaimed. It is Chris Hall from Albion Analysis. Chris, welcome in. How are you?
Good. Technically not self-proclaimed. It was a moniker given me by the England press officer, actually.
Well, there we go. I stand corrected. I do apologise. There you go. The world's most. What's your opinion on the Walton situation? And obviously, it's Alex Palmer, isn't it? That's also.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be honest, because I obviously don't follow Town transfer news anywhere near as closely as you guys do. It's first I've heard of Walton being linked. But the Palmer one is interesting because. Corbrand got quite upset actually yesterday. We got back-to-back friendlies, one on the Friday night, one on the Saturday night. Josh Griffiths is our second choice goalkeeper. He plays Josh Griffiths for the vast majority of the game on Friday night. Now, weirdly, out of nowhere, he subbed Josh Griffiths towards the end of the game. Now, as we now understand it, that has something to do with the transfer bid for Alex Palmer coming in, because he was basically told to not play Alex Palmer on the Saturday, which meant Josh Griffiths has played quite a lot of football he's played back-to-back games on back-to-back nights away at Forest Green and then at Bolton, which is we all well know are not particularly near each other either. No. So the word from on the grapevine and from the club is categoric that there has not been a bid accepted, as I understand it. But there's been enough of a bid to warrant Carlos Corbrand being told to pull him out of the team. Corbrand was quite upset about this after the game. He did an interview where he said, I need clarity from the club as to which players I'm going to keep and which players I'm not going to be able to keep. So I appreciate where Alan Nixon's coming from. He's got a bit of a muddy history with Albion fans and some of his what he states as fact and in truth have turned out to be rather poor predictions. I remember him absolutely standing by the fact that we had categorically signed Tom Lawrence until he went to Rangers. You'll have to excuse me if I don't put too much credence. Don't, Mike. Honestly, there's not enough alcohol in the world to watch David Button for another season. There's got to be enough in it. We've got to be close enough to a deal to pull a player out from playing, because this is the guy that will start on Saturday if he's still our player, if he's going to stay. So you don't tell your manager to drop his first choice goalkeeper if you don't believe the deal is going to be done in the next before Blackburn at the weekend. So I honestly think it seems like Alex Palmer is off. The only thing is the reaction from the fans has been furious. Now, whether the club could care less about that. But there was times in days gone by when the club cared what the fans think. Whether they care now, I doubt it. Turning it to Town and Christian Walton, I can't for the life of me see why both those goalkeepers go, because they're both. You've just said Christian Walton's like 20? Did you say 27?
27, yeah.
27. So I mean, you've got a goalkeeper there who's 27. You've got Alex Palmer, who I believe is I'm just checking actually now, 26. So why would two goalkeepers who are supposed to be in their prime both go to the same club when one of them is guaranteed to not play? I appreciate that money talks to a certain degree, but Alex Palmer has just literally in the last 6 months made himself a championship number one. Why, if you're going to sign Christian Walton as well and make him number one, then I would suggest that Palmer doesn't go, because why go to suddenly sit on the bench again? I think it's an either or situation. What I would suggest is the fact that they have made a bid for Alex Palmer would suggest to me that they are just hedging their bets with Christian Walton and probably inquiring, in case the Palmer deal falls through, so they know, because they obviously want a new keeper for the first game of the season.
Yeah.
They don't want to be messing about going back to square one. But I think Palmer is the first choice here, just because it seems like the deal is further down the line.
Fingers crossed.
Well,
Fingers crossed.
not for us, because if the money being talked about, 2.5-3 million, is correct, then that is a ludicrously low fee for Alex Palmer. It's nowhere near enough. And that's what the fans are kicking off about. They're not upset about the fact that Palmer would go, because we recognise we're a selling club this summer. What we're upset about is the amount of money. And I think, most fans would see him worth 5-6 million, to be honest.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't think I don't think Walton will go. I think the Palmer deal will get done, because every indication seems to be that it is close. And unless Christian Walton is crazy, he's not going to go and sit on the bench behind Alex Palmer. I don't see why he'd do it.
Say that, Crystal Palace got promoted and signed Gabor Kirai and Julian Speroni in the same window, So stranger things have happened, There's a couple of throwback signings for you. West Brom, give us a little bit of a lowdown in regards to yourselves before we move on to sort of other championship predictions. How's your summer gone? What's your in's been like? What's your out's been like? And where do you think you're going to finish this year?
Are you sure you've got a whole 3.5 seconds for me to do our ins? We've signed Jeremy Sarmiento on loan from Brighton, and that's it. He actually looks like an unbelievable signing, to be fair. Ecuadorian international, but he's not. It's not like bringing a South American in where you've got to acclimatise them. He is English. He played for all the England youth teams, but he's got Ecuadorian parentage, and that's why he plays for them. But yeah, we've not done a lot. We've got no money. We're a mess. We are a complete and utter mess as a football club. The only thing holding us together at the moment is Carlos Corberán. But we have on the face of it also got quite a good squad. But to be honest, to the point that was made earlier, what our squad looks like now and what our squad will look like at the close of the window on the 1st of September,
very different.
Could be two very different things, because we seem to be having a fire sale. Actually, up to this point, the fans haven't been too upset with the players that have departed. We let Livermore, Bryan and Rogic go on frees, none of which I don't think fans particularly wanted to stay, none of which played much of a part. We've sold Dara O'Shea, which is a big loss, but I think most people would say that 7 million was fair money for him. We've let Carlan Grant go on loan, who whilst he got 18 goals 2 seasons ago, is just generally not rated by a lot of Albion fans, and clearly was not particularly rated by Corberán. He had to get so far down his left wing options before he picked him last season. And then the others linked with moves away have been the likes of David Button and Nathaniel Chalobah, which, again, gutted, could not care less. So up to this point, it hasn't been too much of a worry. But then when you see Alex Palmer being linked with a move away at 3 million quid, you think, wow, how low are the prices that we're prepared to accept for some of our players? And that's the really scary thing. I think if we go into the season, with most of the players that we've got now,
we're going to finish. Go on.
Well, if we kept Corberán the whole season, and if we got the squad that we've got, or the squad plus a few Premier League loans, which is where we're going to do the vast majority of our business. Trevor, I warned you about Rec about 18 months ago on this very pod, and Mart still picked him for Player of the Year. So,
he was class in a friendly against Millwall.
Yeah, well, he's always class in a friendly somewhere, but yeah, he looked all right for us against us for Burton the other week, but I still wouldn't put my house on him, but. But no, I think if we kept the manager all the way through and we keep the majority of the players and we add a couple of young players from the Premier League, I think we're dark horses for the playoffs. But the fact is, none of those things will happen, and we won't make the playoffs. Corberán will probably walk away when somebody offers him a job in around October time, around the first round of sackings, because he's not crazy. We will probably sell at least a couple of big names before the end of this window, which will weaken us. We might get a few Premier League loans in, but without Corberán and without this squad, we won't make the playoffs. But if in this wonderful little fictitious world that I'm creating, we manage to keep the majority of the players and keep our manager, I don't think there's many in this division who have a better starting 11 than us. And and despite the second tier pod naming your manager who hasn't managed a single championship game as the best manager in the championship, I think we've got the best manager in the championship.
Manager, Chris. It was the manager that they would want in charge of their club.
Oh, honestly, they were giving so many caveats to it. Was clickbait, mate. It was clickbait. But I still had to see who they picked because I knew it was going to be ludicrous. But
it wasn't ludicrous from my point of view.
Well, look,
I think it
is ludicrous. It's like it's like me saying that Fabio Capello is the best Premier League manager ever. You know what I mean? Like, oh, he has never managed a Premier League game. Oh well, never mind. You can't pick a guy who's never managed.
That goes to Martin Yole, surely.
Yeah, but no, I think we've got the best manager in the league, and what he did with our squad last year goes some way to prove that. But I don't think we'll have him all season.
I was going to say to Chris before you said that about is that the most important bit of business you could do is keeping your manager
by a mile. By a mile. I mean, we are a club being held together by a series of like gaffer tape jobs. And he is the gaffer tape. Like, we're a series of sort of like botch jobs all over the place. Just this club is clinging together by the skin of its teeth, and all of that is Corberan. I mean, you saw at the start of last season, we were bottom by the 1st of November under Bruce. Like that's what we're like with a bad manager, and that's exactly the same players. That's exactly the same players as we have now. We were bottom of the league, so. That is the difference between a good manager and a bad manager is bottom of the league under Bruce, and then when Corberan comes in, winning 10 of the next 11. Yeah. That's the difference.
And that will be the difference, as you say, for your season. We've got triple figures watching us. Hit the like button, please, if you can. We'll move to our bottom threes then. I'll let you go first, Rich. Well, Chris has a glass of water after giving us the rundown on West Brom and realising what sort of pit of misery he might find himself in if Carlos... Because on Friday, he wasn't happy. Let's be honest. He wasn't chuffed about... No. Losing Palmer, so it's an interesting one to watch.
Nor should he be if players are getting sold from. I mean, I'm sorry, but if you're the manager of a football club and you're on the bus to a game, or even you don't know what to believe on this, but potentially
on the sidelines.
There's been rumours that it was as bad as that. That it was messages passed to him on the sideline to bring Griffiths off during the Forest Green game, because he's going to need to play him the next day. Other people have said it was on the bus up to Bolton. How much of this is true, you can never know. There's so many rumours in football. But either way, he was blindsided by this. I don't think there's any denying that. And that is not only no way to treat a manager, but it's certainly no way to treat the one man that gives your club a chance this season.
Absolutely. Right, Rich, we've got some bottom threes coming in. Get your bottom threes into the chat. Let me know who you feel. Love it. Absolutely love it. We'll do more with Chris through the season. I love a bit of passion on the podcast. Rich, your bottom three and why you've chosen the three teams.
Three. Right. So I'm going to start with Cardiff.
All right. Cardiff.
I think they're going to struggle. Got a new manager, Errol Balut from Fenerbahce. I think they'll struggle. Have they still got a transfer embargo, Chris? Cardiff.
They have, but they're sort of they're finding the loophole in it.
Basically,
because they can do frees and loans.
Yeah, because they got Aaron Ramsey, didn't they?
So they've basically chucked stupid money at wages, and they're bringing in a load of players on. I mean, they've took Carlan Grant from us, who by all accounts is on somewhere between 20 and 25 grand a week. So they're not scrimping on wages.
It's right if you can get it in them.
So Cardiff.
Yeah.
You have Rotherham as well, mine.
Yeah.
We obviously played them in the FA Cup last season. Look, they're always going to be a team that are going to fight to stay in the league. And I also think, I see they got humped 5-0 yesterday by Oxford. Our friend Gareth Ainsworth, I think he might be one of the first managers for the chop. And I think they're really going to struggle, Mike, because he obviously went there last season. They just survived, didn't they, by the skin of their teeth. I think they beat Burnley, didn't they, Chris, away right near the end of the season when no one really see that result coming. And that probably kept them up in the end. So I think
they had one of those games where Burnley had an insane amount of shots, hit every piece of woodwork that was available, and just QPR stuck their two chances away. It was a mad game.
So I think they're going to struggle, mate. And I agree with Stephen Barry. QPR, they worry me, and I think Ainsworth. I know he's a QPR legend, Martin, but I don't think he's good enough to manage in the Championship. So Yeah, they're my bottom three. Yours might be different.
Well, I've got 2 to 3. I'm not going to say which 2 I've got just yet, but I've got 2 of the same 3. Chris, your bottom 3. Who do you feel is going to go down this year?
I mean, I agree on QPR to a certain degree. I think the thing with QPR is how long they stick by Ainsworth. I think if they stay with Ainsworth too long, they could go down. But I think if they sack Ainsworth early enough, I think there's probably enough quality in that squad to maybe sneak out of it. They were certainly on my shortlist. I would say that this year, having watched a lot of the Championship in recent years for fairly obvious reasons, I think this is one of the strongest championships we've had in a very long time. And I think picking the relegated 3 is really, really hard because normally there's a standout team. I think the other thing is, and you always have to kind of put a bit of an asterisk over the relegated clubs. We've barely had a season in the last 5 years where somebody hasn't had a points deduction. So if somebody gets a points deduction, there's a very good chance they'll be one of the 3 that go down. And on that, from that point of view, I think Sheffield Wednesday are a basket case at the moment. I've got them nailed on to go down. I mean, look, I know it's a bit rich coming from an Albion fan saying if you look upstairs and it's a mess, you've got to think it's going to translate onto the pitch. And that has to a certain degree for us over the last couple of years. But Chef Wed, the fan base and the manager, the fan base and the chairman are just not vibing at all. They haven't really done any business. It seemed crazy to me getting rid of Darren Moore after what he did last season.
Agreed.
And I'm not. I mean, Xisco Minots. He feels like he's going to be there 15 minutes and then they're going to get another magger in. He
must have wondered, Chris, when I see his press conference and Chancery had a rant for about 20 minutes about Carlton. Signed Ashley Fletcher, I see, from not a great loan signing for me.
I mean, thank you for double underlining my point. If you're signing Ashley Fletcher, I'm sorry. No, I think if somebody said to me, you've got to stick your house on one team to go down this season, I think it'd be Chef Wed, just because I think I just think they're a basket case, and I feel for them because they've waited to get back in this league. They're clearly a massive, massive club. There's no denying that. But I think they're going to go straight back down. With them, I was pretty much tossing a coin between Huddersfield and QPR because Huddersfield are just doing no business at all. And that's dangerous. The Warnock factor kept sort of getting, but then in the end, I've just gone, no, I'm not even sure Neil Warnock can save this season. But it was a real flip of a coin between Huddersfield and QPR. And then the other one I'm going to go with is Plymouth. I like them and they're a nice club and they could very easily do what Blackpool did 2 years ago and end up finishing 11th and make me look very, very silly. But I always feel like in the Championship, you kind of have to pick the team that's got the lowest budget because most of the time they do tend to go down, even if they're well run as Plymouth are. And time caught up with Blackpool in the end, and they went down last season. Rotherham generally went down most seasons when they were the club with the lowest budget. I really like Plymouth as a club. I like their manager, but they've lost a few players. I mean, you were talking before about cherry picking Michael Cooper, and it's not out the question you could do that. Obviously, Ennis left on a free and went to Blackburn. It's not good when you go up and you don't keep the players that got you up. And they had a lot of loans as well last season. People like Finazaz and people like that. How many of them are they going to be able to get back? I think they've
signed
got
Munger and they signed Whittaker. I think with Plymouth, Chris, I think if they're going to stay in this division, their home form is going to be key for them because it was last season when they got promoted. I think they lost only 2 all season. I think on the road they'll struggle. But I think at home, if they can pick up enough points, I think they'll stay up.
I've got Plymouth on my sheet, but not for the bottom 3. I'm not going to say where they are on the sheet.
You've got them for your courses, haven't you?
My sheet. Wait to see. It might be in the top 6. You never know. So you've gone for Huddersfield, Wednesday, and Plymouth there, Chris.
Yeah. But as I say, what I would replace one of Plymouth or Huddersfield with QPR if they keep Ainsworth beyond Christmas.
Yeah, I've gone for QPR, Wednesday, Rotherham. I did do because I felt, I know a QPR fan, a friend with him. Ainsworth inherited a mess. It's like an absolute gutting out there.
Wednesday because your brother supports them.
And I get updates about how much of a basket case they are.
They are.
And Rotherham, because as you said, they're always going to be one of those uphill battlers that you feel at any point their time is eventually going to run out. But I'll go for 3 different teams I could have picked that I did write down. Preston North End. I'm not a massive fan of them. We saw them obviously in a friendly against us, only a friendly. But I feel they're another side who could struggle. Stoke, they're under a rebuilding with Alex Neil.
They seem to be making some really good signings, though, in the last couple of weeks.
It's got to gel together. I just feel it's that fragile gel where if it goes well, it's going to go really well, like spark into life. But if it struggles early, it could fracture. That's what it feels like from the outside looking in.
I've actually got Stoke as my dark horses, Martin.
There you go. You see, we'll come to
because I always think.
Tell me more about those in a second.
How many years have they been in the Championship, Chris, since they've been relegated, Stoke?
Oh, it's quite a few, and I've got to be honest, I'm sick to death of predicting them to finish in the top 6, and then
this is why that's my thinking, that they've not fired at all, and they've not got nowhere near the playoffs. I think Alex Neil's a good look. We see what Alex Neil done mine up the road at Norwich.
He's great.
He's a good manager. They got some money, obviously the coach. So I just think this might be the season that I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs, but I think they could be a top 10 shout.
Well, you never know. You never know. This is the beauty of the Championship, I guess, because there's so many teams you could put in the bottom 3, but equally there's so many teams you could put in the top 6. It's the middle bit where everyone's average in that middle bit, like a few teams, but you're either really bad or really quite.
Frank's gone in. Frank's gone in on the chat on West Brom.
Has he? West Bromwich Albion will probably be relegated, says being Frank on Ipswich.
To be fair, if we lose Corberan and lose a lot of players, why not? To be honest with you, and you talk about teams who could end up getting a points deduction. Our finances are bad enough. I honestly don't think it will happen this season, but I think if we're still in this division next season, I think we will be minus something on points. So I honestly don't think we'll go down this season, but I think would be a fairly decent bet for next season. Just on Stoke, I see they signed that Wesley, who used to be at Villa yesterday, which is a random one.
That's the signing that could spark into life and be, oh my God, that's an amazing signing. Or you look back in a year, 2 years, 3 years, and you go, do you know when they signed Wesley? It just did not work out for him. Like it's that variable where it could go really well or just be an absolute... It's
a very Stoke signing, isn't it? Signing a bloke who once cost a load of money, who's had a load of injuries. It almost feels like the quintessential Stoke signing, a bit like signing Dwight Gale last summer. Let's sign guys who's basically had their body put back together like they're blooming RoboCop.
That's a good way of putting it. Right, dark horses. They don't have to make the playoffs. Unless they do in your top 6, that's fine. I'll go first. My dark horses are Plymouth. I think their transfer business has been really shrewd. I love their manager. I think he is one of the up-and-coming managers in the country. A really good coach, really good on it tactically, which I think in the Championship you really have to be. And I just like their business guys. You've got Morgan Whittaker, Barley Mumba. Signed the SC20 centre-half, who I think is going to be really, really well in the Championship. I like their business. I think many will say small budget, they should struggle, they probably go down, like Chris did there, and it's a fair point. I think they're a dark horses. Not to make the playoffs. They're not making the playoffs for me, but they're certainly going to be top 11, and people are going to go, wow, that's a great season for them.
Obviously, you think their home form's going to be key as well, Martin?
Absolutely, yeah. A bit like Luton in the Premier League. You're going to hope teams don't like playing at Kenilworth Road, or in this instance, don't like playing at Home Park, because that's going to be the real key to their magic. But that's my dark horse.
What I'd say on Plymouth is, I will happily say what they won't do is they won't finish a place or two outside of the relegation zone. They will either have a Blackpool-esque season where it all clicks for them, and as you say, their home form is unbelievable, and these players just make the step up, or they'll be out of their depth. I don't think there's any in between. I really don't think.
Back on there, Gov from Nunny.
Nunny, what, this one?
Yeah. Who did I say that Town should sign striker wise?
Kiefer Moore. You did.
100%.
You did.
100% better than anything we got.
You did. Mike says Plymouth dark horse of the division for him. Craig went Plymouth for dark horses. Stephen says from 4th to 18 could be anyone, which I think is an absolute Fantastic.
100% agree with that. I really agree with that. I think I just, as I say, this, when you go through it, this division this year is just so tight. I went through Transfermarkt's Championship business, just seeing who everyone had signed before we did this pod. And I was just going through, and every club I was picking someone out, going, "Oh, I like that's a nice little bit of business." That, "Oh, I like that." There was, like I say, there was only really Huddersfield and Sheffield Wednesday that I looked at, and I thought, "You've brought in absolutely nobody," which is why I ended up dumping them into my bottom three. But everybody else has at least done some little clever bits of business.
Yeah, I'd agree. Absolutely agree. And if you're a big believer in dominoes, didn't Plymouth? I've just had to double check my notes, but didn't Plymouth sign a goalkeeper in the window? Connor Hazard, did they sign him?
Yeah.
For a bit of money. So if you're a believer in dominoes,
from Celtic,
one, they bring him in. Someone loses a goalkeeper. Could that be Cooper? If you're a great believer in the old domino effect in football, perhaps that's the untold sign. I don't know. But dark horses, Chris, your dark horses, please.
I've gone with Hull City.
Why?
Look at their end to last season, mate. After the World Cup break, they played 25 games. They lost just 5 of them. They kept clean sheets in 12. They were the best defence in the league. Rosenior has had a really, really big effect on them. And they've just started with some smart business. I know people will look at Liam Delap and go, "Oh, it didn't really work for him at Owens at Stoke and Preston last year." But he's so highly rated at Manchester City, and he's such a young lad. I think a bit like what you were talking about with George Hurst. I just think it needs a goal to drop for him, and I think it will start happening. They've brought in Vinagre as well, which I think is a good signing. And I to be honest, I think they're being linked with a lot of players. Apparently, Tufan has been on fire in pre-season as well, and he obviously missed a chunk of the end of last season with an injury. I think there's a lot to like about Hull. I really do. And I think it's always important to look at the team. I get what you're saying about goals are Hull's issue, but then if Delap can start scoring, then that resolves that issue. I also don't think it'll be the end of the business. They've also brought in Aaron Connolly as well, or they're going to be back from Brighton. So I think they are definitely trying to address the goal issue without a shadow of a doubt. And I think there's a lot to like, and plus as well, you say goals are the issue, but under Corberan last season, we had a level of form that would have had us finish 4th if that had been translated across the whole season. If you took the Bruce bit out, we didn't score a lot of goals. We didn't have a player who hit double figures. But we kept it tight at the back. We won games by the single goal, and Hull were the best defensive team in the league last year after the international break, after the World Cup break. If you keep it tight, you can get away with having a guy who scores 10, 11, 12 goals. You don't always need a 20-goal a season striker in this division. I remember Cardiff going up under Warnock with Ken Zahor as their top goal scorer, and that's saying something. So Hull are in my top 6. They're not going to be in my top 2 by any stretch of the imagination, but I think there's a lot to like. I don't think their business is finished. I think they've got a really, really clever manager, and he's building from a level of stability. And you look at the teams that finished last season strongly and who has managed to keep stability. Because the reason I'm not putting Swansea in this is because they've lost too much. And they've obviously, Russell Martin's gone to Southampton. They've brought in Michael Duff. They've also lost a lot of the loan players that they had. Hull, there's just not been that much turnover. There's stability there, and they can build on the brilliant finish they had to last season. Because there's no doubt in my mind, if last season had been 10 games longer, Hull would have finished in the playoffs.
So it looks that way with how strong they finished the season. And Liam Rosenior, Rich, it's a great story. Obviously, assistant at Derby under Rooney, given the job on a caretaker basis. Former Town loanee. Then he's removed from his position at Derby for Warne to come in.
He was unlucky, weren't he, really, at Derby?
But he's done so well here that it's almost this is what you could have had situation, because he has.
I've got them 6th or 7th Hull. I agree with Chris. I think they're outsiders. I don't know if they'll just have enough, maybe not to make the playoffs. But he's a good young coach, Rosenior. I like when I hear him talk. he's one of these young coaches. So I can't wait to go to Hull. I've missed going to what's their ground called? Is it got a new sponsor now, Chris?
Oh, I can't keep up. It's I mean it's one of them because I went to uni there and it was the Kingston Communications Stadium when I was at uni there. But as you can tell by my rapidly receding hairline, this was some years ago.
To Hull and back. You're looking forward to going to Hull and back, aren't you? Let's be honest.
Do you know what? I tell you what, it's a cheap night out. It's a fun night out, and it's a cheap night out. I would recommend a cheeky stay over in Hull. Not necessarily for the scenery. They've only got the Deep, which is the I think the world's largest aquatic centre, but or the country's largest aquatic centre.
Oh, it's the MGM Arena now.
There you go.
Is it?
There you go.
You live and learn.
You live and learn. Your dark horses, Rich, please.
Well, I said, didn't I? Stoke. They're my dark horses. I think they might finally. I've not got them in the playoffs, but I think they'll be pushing. I've got them at 8th in my predictions, Martin. So, lovely. But then they might fall flat like they have past seasons. But I think Alex Neil's a good manager. He knows what he's doing in this division, and obviously he swapped Sunderland for Stoke, didn't he, last season? And then obviously Sunderland made the playoffs. So. Yeah, I think they'll have a decent season.
All right. Being frank, I think Leicester will regret letting George Hurst go, but there's no point giving him a loan. Player doesn't want to play there. They had no choice. Crispy says, one of the ex-Premier League teams from last year will be 1, 2 or 3, or whether one of them might drop off a bit. We'll come to our top 6 shortly. But first of all, I want to know where you think Ipswich are going to finish. Ipswich, I say it right, are going to finish. It's only my team of 33 years. Chris, I'll come to you first. Where do you think Ipswich are going to finish?
What I would say is I think you're being overrated in the bookies odds. I don't mean that harshly. I purely mean it on the data. Like you look at how teams. I mean this is it. If you are 5th in the odds for promotion, I had a look on Sky Bet just before we came on. And I don't see especially in a championship this strong, I don't see the justification for having a promoted team 5th in the odds when you've got to prove that you might go and finish 5th. It has happened, but in the last 15 years, 5 promoted teams have finished in the top 6. 3 have made the playoffs, which were Sunderland last season, Leicester and Brentford. This is in their first season up, and then 2 have been automatically promoted, both in second place. Southampton and Norwich. Under Nigel Adkins, and say it quietly, Norwich under Paul Lambert. So it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, most teams come up and have good teams come up and have an 8th, 9th, 10th place finish their first season up, and then kick on really strongly in their second season. And I can genuinely see that being you. But I think that's probably where I would have you. I would have you flirting with the playoffs, but probably not quite having enough to get you over the line, just because I think the division's so strong. I think if you'd gone up into the championship last season, which was for me a much weaker league, I think you'd have had a real shot. Which for me is part of the reason Sunderland managed to come up from League One and make
6th place finish last season, Chris. Was it 69 points?
Yeah, it was really low.
No. Yeah,
it was actually. I think you'll find it was the second lowest points total a team has ever finished in second. Finished in 6th for the championship. I think only Leicester have made the top 6 with less points. So that just goes to show that it was a weak league with one really, really dominant team. And whilst when we come to our top 6s, I do have one dominant team. I think there will be, but I think the rest of the league is stronger than it was last year, and I think making the top 6 this year is going to be harder than it was last year, because I mean I don't have last season's relegated teams who stayed down, Norwich and Watford, anywhere near for me. Like I have them both mid-table, because I think the teams that performed better last season have got a little bit better, or most of them. And I think the 3 relegated clubs at present, on paper at least, look really strong. None of them look in total disarray, which you sometimes get from teams coming down.
I agree.
they've all made what I would consider to be relatively smart appointments. I think one appointment is a lot better than the other two, but I think all have made reasonably sensible appointments. There's none of this, Watford going and plucking a bloke that you've never heard of, and
not yet. That will come in October.
No, but what I mean is that Leeds, Leicester, and Southampton have not done that. They've not gone and got somebody who might have a great record in Israel or somewhere like that, but you've never ever heard of them, and then they get fired after 3 months. I just, looking at them on paper, they look really, really strong.
Absolutely, Rich. I'm not going to ask you where Ipswich is going to finish yet. I'm going to end the show with that. I want to ask you where Norwich going to finish. As Crispy says, as long as we're above Norwich, I don't mind. And many fans would share the same sentiment. So where do you think Norwich will finish?
I think they've made some smart signings. I think it all depends.
I've been really underwhelmed by their business. I think it's like Dad's Army.
Yeah, he's gone for experience. He's gone for experience. For me, it depends who can get the goals for Norwich, because Ashley Barnes he's a decent striker, but he's probably not going to get 10 goals, is he, Chris? When you look at Josh Sargent, can he step up now? Possibly. Look, I think Town will finish above Norwich, but I don't think we'll finish above them by many places. It all depends how they start, because if they start well, Norwich, it's like Town as well, but especially for Norwich under Wagner. Mm-hmm. They get the crowd behind them, they can win some early games. You get that momentum. But if they struggle early on, I think the fans there will turn Martin on him, and I don't think he might not last that long.
What are you saying? 1 to 24.
11th.
Okay.
I don't rate him one bit, by the way, Wagner. I was delighted when we didn't get him. No, not at all. You honestly, because I did because we were heavily linked with him as manager before we got Valerian Ismail, which, to be fair, turned out to be probably the greater of two evils, if truth be told. But so I did a lot of research with him, and actually, when you look back at it, that season he got up with Huddersfield. They were so fortunate to make the playoffs. I mean, they made the playoffs with a negative goal difference. How do you do that? And then the season that he stayed up with Huddersfield, if anybody could have strung two results, they stayed up due to other teams' inadequacies, not due to their own quality. I don't see a great deal to like in David Wagner's CV, and we played them towards the end of last season in what was a very odd game, because both teams needed, if either team had won, which we ended up winning it, they would have still had a shot at the playoffs on the final day, and so it was very tit for tat. There was neither team was worrying too much about defending, but they went ahead. And he didn't seem to have a clue how to shut the game down. Whereas when we went 2-1 up in the second half, like, Corberán just suddenly transforms the whole system, and we were like, "Thou shalt not pass," and we saw the game out 2-1. But Wagner seemed to carry on with this gung ho crazy style, even at 1-0 up at our place, and I thought, what are you doing? Like, I mean, I was delighted he did it, but. No, he's not for me. And if you I like Jack Stacey as a signing, but if you're bringing in Shane Duffy and Ashley Barnes, it just smacks of the kind of mistakes I've seen us make, and I've seen other teams make, where you bring in these guys who are, their best days are behind them, and you sort of nostalgically think that they're going to be the player that they once were, and they just aren't.
Norman says, or asks rather, Chris, who do you think will finish higher, Ipswich or Norwich, before we come to our top six?
Ipswich.
Love it. All right, top sixes then. Rich, kick us off with
Chris
your.
Can come again with that sort of prediction.
I know, absolutely he can. He knows the answer to the Sound of Town podcast.
We're going from sixth upwards.
Yeah, let's do 6 to 3, and then we'll do the top two separately.
So I've
3,
got sixth place. I've got Sunderland.
Okay.
Fifth, I've got Hull. Fourth, I've got Middlesbrough, and third, I've got Leeds.
Okay. All right. Sunderland 6th. Do you think they're going to retain their playoff position this year then?
Yeah, it all depends. I think is Ross Stewart. I think is he in the final year of his contract, isn't he, Chris?
He's still. He's potentially out of contract.
He's probably going to leave, isn't he?
Yeah, I think that they have been. There's been talk of negotiations between him and the club. But there's from what I understand, he's asking for quite a lot of money, and for a guy who was injured for most of last season, I think there's a reticence to give it to him.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit sort of a little bit biased for Sunderland because we like Tony Mowbray, don't we? Good manager. I'm glad they've kept him because there was a lot of talk after they missed out in the playoffs that they were actually going to get rid of him, which I thought was really, really crazy. But Sunderland, big club, Martin. I think they've got massive support. We'll find that out next week when we go there. You know, it'll be a white hot atmosphere, and I think Hull, like I agree with Chris.
Borough,
Akpon. I see he's not featured in pre-season, Chris, so far.
Keeping him fresh.
I was going to say. I mean, I'll come to Borough in a minute, but I think there's a lot to like about Borough, and I don't think their business will be done either.
And then Leeds. Look, I think the teams that got relegated, Martin, will be in the top 6. I've sort of given away my top 2.
That's all right. That's fine. But you got all right, Chris. Your top 6, please.
So, I mean, I always think that one of the top 6 will, one of the relegated clubs will implode somewhere along the line. And if
please let me lead.
Well, yeah, possibly. But I mean, I'm not massively sweet on Farke, to be honest with you. But I think if it was going to be any of them at the moment, for me, it would be Southampton, just because Russell Martin has a history of taking a bit of time to get going with all his, whenever he goes into, because it's such a different style of play, because it's so pass. MK Dons were slow to adapt to it, so were Swansea, and I think if Southampton take a long time to adapt to his style of play, they might give themselves a little bit too much to do. So my 6 is Southampton if they can adapt quickly, but if they can't, my other dark horse was Birmingham City, who I think have done brilliant business in this window. I mean, you look at the players they've brought in, and you know it's really, really impressive. Sanderson, Keshi Anderson, Laird, Tyler Roberts, Siriki Dembele. They've got Bielik back on a permanent after being. And I think as well, if they get a striker, because my one concern with Blues is that the Jutkiewicz and Hogan don't score enough goals. I think you mentioned Kiefer Moore before. If they went and got a Kiefer Moore, they're under new ownership. It's a new start. I think they've got a brilliant young manager. I think they're more Southampton for that 6th place. And then 5th, I've got Hull for the reasons that I've already mentioned. 4th, I saw somebody said on the chat that they were surprised you'd left Coventry out. I've got Cov 4th. And I actually think they're going to be stronger this coming year than they were last year. Yes, they've lost Gyökeres to Sporting Lisbon, but they've replaced him with Sims, which I think is a brilliant signing. They've brought in Latibeaudiere from on a free from Swansea. They also had Callum O'Hare missing for the whole of pretty much the whole of the back end of last season. He will be a massive plus when he gets back. If they don't lose Hamer, who obviously has been linked,
might go to Holland.
If he
wants to go back home.
If they don't lose him, but even so, they haven't spent that much on Sims. They got in over 20 million quid for Gyökeres. Surely that is going to give them a little bit of wiggle room in the rest of this window. And Coventry don't generally waste money. Their recruitment is brilliant. I think they'll be really strong this year if they spend well. And then in 3rd, just missing out on promotion, on automatic promotion. Not necessarily saying they won't do it in the playoffs. I've got Leeds.
Okay. All right. Well, then we've got a unanimous 3rd place then, gentlemen, because I've got Leeds in 3rd as well. So guaranteed, nailed on not to finish 3rd. But no, love that. All right. So Leeds, Coventry, Hull. Are you going to Saints or Brum? Because you said both, and I put both.
I'll tell you what. I will stick my neck out and drop Southampton out the top 6 and put Birmingham in there. Even though I'm not completely convinced.
They've really used the money they received in regards to the Bellingham transfer to good use, haven't they?
They've used that well. I do think losing Chong is a bit of a blow, but then they also seem to have a weirdly good relationship with Manchester United, because obviously they took Chong on loan and then they bought him. They took Hannibal last year. They've obviously gone and got Laird as well. Yep. I think if they go and get, it's not out the question they could go and get another Man United loan. And if they do that, I mean, as we saw last season with the lad at Sunderland, some of the players in the Man United youth team, in their Premier League 2 team, are exceptional. I mean, he was just he was a class above anything. Even the Burnley players, I didn't think any of them were individually as good as he was last season in the Championship.
Norman says Southampton went from a pressing under Hussenthal to Longbourn to Jones to slow, possibly under Martin. I think they will start slowly. Stephen said, I don't think Sims will match the striker gone. If he does match his goals, where do they get them from? Phil says Leicester, Southampton, Leeds, Borough, Sunderland, Ipswich, no particular order.
I agree with the comment there about Coventry, because I think it was other than 5 goals, Chris, I think it was Hamer and Gyökeres were involved in all but 5 of their goals last season. So if they lose Hamer as well, that is a big miss. But
yes,
a lot of our fans, Chris, we were obviously linked with Sims, and then it was reported 8 million, and then the Town fans were saying, "Oh, I wouldn't take it. I'd have took him.
I would have done. Yeah, I would have done."
You look at Sims' goals per minute last season for Sunderland. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
Like the guy at this level is a goal scorer, and whilst I acknowledge he's not going to be as good as Gyökeres, you've got to spread the money out a little bit, and I do think Cov probably do need to go and get another striker to sort of back him up. I think that I think Robbins is a smart enough manager to cope with this. If it was a manager that I felt had just purely rode the Gyökeres wave, but Robbins has done well with so many different Coventry teams over the last few years. They only had Gyökeres the last 2 years. They were relying on Matty Godden before that, and still Robbins got a tune out of him and finished like well clear of the relegation zone. Coventry are now a well-established Championship team with some good players, and whilst Gyökeres is a loss, I think Sims is a good player, and I do think they will continue to use the Gyökeres money very intelligently.
How much are they signing for? Was it $1 million from Swansea?
What Gyökeres?
Yeah.
It was less than $1 million. It was from Brighton, actually. It wasn't from Swansea. It was from Brighton.
He was on loan at Swansea, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was, he was a Brighton player, and they I think they snapped him up for about $600-700 grand, which is great business. That's Coventry.
Business. Exactly. They're not in my top 6, but my top 6 is Ipswich in 6th. I think we're going to make a couple of signings, squeak into 6th. I do think, based on the current squad, we'd threaten the top 6. I think we're good enough if we keep fit. It's all down to depth, which we don't have. But I'll say 6th. Borough in 5th. Sunderland in 4th. And Leeds in 3rd. That would be my top 6. You want to talk about Borough, I remember, Rich. Did you want to touch on them? Because
It was me.
Chris. Apologies, Chris. Borough. What about Borough do you like particularly?
They're just well run, aren't they? I think the thing with Borough is they were similar to us at the start of last season, had that horrendous start. I've got them 2nd, and nice. I just they then brought in Carrick, and Carrick just transformed them, and he transformed them 2 weeks earlier than Corberan transformed us, which is why they got enough points to get in the playoffs and we didn't. But they've got so much to like about their side, and their business seems to be smart. I mean, they've gone to Australia and bought the two guys in from the A-League over there. Now, I don't know much about the goalkeeper, but the forward Silvera is supposed to be a really, really, really good player. It's not the first time they've dipped into Australia either. I think they got is it McGee, the lad who likes to score worldies from 30 yards. As you say, they've got Akpom as well. I would imagine that they will probably go and get a good loan. They obviously got Archer last season. Dale Fry has signed a new contract, which is a big thing for them. Their big, strong centre half is staying. They've brought in Gilbert, who's another good young player. Van den Berg, who they've brought in, who's very highly rated from Holland. I just think there's loads to like. Morgan Rogers as well, which is
from City.
Which is obviously ex-Albion youth product, and there's a cracking player there.
Is he a loan signing, Chris?
No, they've signed him permanently. Yeah,
He was at Lincoln, wasn't he, on loan?
Yeah, Lincoln, and he was at Blackpool last season as well. But I just think there's loads to like about Borough. I think you look at clubs that are unstable, and then you look at clubs that just seem to be doing it the right way, patient with a young manager, building gradually, step by step, not spending stupid fees on players that are on the downward slope. They just. And I think they've got a nice mix of some decent experience in there with players who've been at Borough for quite a few years, mixed in with some really exciting young signings. And yeah, I think they'll finish second. And unsurprisingly, I'm pretty sure we're all in the same boat here. I've got them finishing second to Leicester, who I look at their team and I'm just like, how is that a championship team? Like, it's ridiculous. I mean, you look at the signings, Winks, Cody.
Yep.
I mean, that level of leadership, okay, a little bit old and immobile, but like the right sort of character. But then putting alongside him Doyle, who was a brilliant player at this level last season for Coventry. So you've got a lovely mix of youth and experience at centre half. Okay, they at centre forward. How much are they going to get out of Vardy? Probably enough at this level, I would suggest. And then you've got Daka, you've got Iheanacho. They should have no trouble scoring goals at this level. You just go through that Leicester City team.
What about goalkeeper, Chris? They've obviously signed Mads Hermansen from Bromwich. I think that was for me, that is one of the main reasons why they ended up in this division, because they didn't replace Kasper Schmeichel, who was there for a long time, wasn't it? And last year, I think they had Gavin Ward was in goal, and
Everson as well. Yeah, but then how much is it really going to matter? Because the difference is that gets you relegated in the Premier League because you're going to face a lot of shots. You're going to be the team under pressure. I don't see many teams going to Leicester and having loads of shots at goal. I think if the difference this season is if they've got a competent goalkeeper, and those that you've named, Ward is a Welsh international goalkeeper. Everson's, I think he's got a rick in him personally. I'd be moving him on. I don't know that much about the lad that they've brought in, but I think they will have enough competence at goalkeeper. And I'm sorry, but if you're a goalkeeper and you've got Cody and Doyle in front of you, you shouldn't be having to worry too much about anything anyway. No. They've still got like Pereira at wing back, Thomas on the other side. They should be this year's Burnley. And that's before I've even mentioned Enzo Maresca, who I think is a brilliant appointment. I think is one of the most exciting young coaches around. He's another one off the Pep Guardiola production line. We've seen what Arteta has gone and done at Arsenal. Maresca's been learning off him for the last few years. Yeah, got Dieng as well, which I'll be honest, he's dropped a couple of howlers for QPR against us, so I'm not too sweet on him. But I know QPR fans did like him. So I just think they're going to have way too much Leicester, way too much for this.
And I would completely agree with you. So you've gone Leicester and then Borough for your
Leicester
top
winning
two.
it, Borough second. Yeah,
I've gone Leicester winning it for the very reasons you've expertly mentioned, and I've gone for Southampton in second. I think they're just I don't know. From the I just think they'd finish second. I think they could be a good team. I think you make some great points regarding the system. It can take a while to embed. It can take a while to get going. But that's football. That's the great thing about football. They'll either be really good or not as good as you detailed. So I've gone for Leicester and Southampton. You've gone for Leicester and Borough. But we've both agreed Leicester probably will blow most of the championship, if not all of it, away. Rich, that leaves the top two for you.
Leicester and Southampton, Gov. I've gone the same as you. I think I do agree a little bit with Chris saying about Russell Martin. He's got a big reputation, Chris, but he's not really done anything yet.
No, I mean he got Swansea really going at the end of last season. Yeah. We played them on the final day, and they played some lovely stuff. As I say, I actually do like Russell Martin as a manager. I like the way he plays football, and I think he recruits to a system as well, which is great. It's just the only reason that I dropped Southampton out my top six is that like I say, he's been at 2 clubs before, and both of them have had slow starts under him. I like the business they've done. I think Ryan Manning is a good signing. Obviously, a player he's going to know very, very well. He's brought in Shea Charles, who from Man City, who I've not seen a lot of, but is apparently very highly rated. And let's be fair, you bring in players from Man City, they're normally not mugs. I do think there's things to like about Southampton. Look, if they adapt quickly to Manning, they could be not only a threat for the top 6, but as you say, really, really have a good go at the top 2. I am literally just being held back by having seen 2 Russell Martin sides take the better end of 6 to 9 months to really get going under him, and that's what's stopping me putting them in the top 6. But I appreciate it's one where I could easily be proved so wrong.
Absolutely, and I agree with you. It's a system that can take a while to sort of embed and get the philosophy really ingrained throughout the squad. A bit like Ishmael's philosophy, which never really got going anywhere at West Brom.
Not at us, no.
No. Right. The last question of the show. It's been a fantastic show, and I really appreciate you coming in and helping us, Chris. Rich, where will the mighty town finish?
It's interesting. You're talking about philosophy, and obviously we've got one now, haven't we, under Kieran? He's been in a year and a half. We know how we're going to play. We've got an identity. But I did say, Gov, at the top of the show, it's at the minute, I'm basing it on what we've got at the minute.
Okay.
We've got a good starting 11. But underneath that, you look at, this is probably the same team, other than George Hurst, who we had in on loan. Mm-hmm. This is a team that had a sticky spell and won 4 games in 15. Was it 4 in 15 or something like that? Between sort of, well, it was after that Charlton game, wasn't it?
Great start, shite middle.
Yeah, when we were 4-2 up, and then we all know what happened, and then we drew 4-4. So that's what I'm basing it on at the minute. And I think if we have a bit of luck with injury, everyone needs luck with injuries, Martin.
Yeah.
We do need some in key areas, like Nathan Broadhead at the minute. If he was out for a prolonged spell, who have we got to come in there? Well, we have got players to come in, but I think there's a drop-off. And we see that last season when he missed a couple of games towards the running. A Connor Chaplin. You know, if Connor Chaplin got 2 or 3 months out, you're not going to rely on... No, well, there you go. You're not relying on Aluko to come in and play in that position. So it all depends who these 2 or 3 players that we're going to get in, because obviously Mark Ashton he's said on Friday, hasn't it, that there's players coming in. I think we'll have a positive season. I think some of our fans do need to take off the blue tinted glasses. I totally agree with you, Chris, that I don't know how they can really have us as 5th favourites. And Kieran McKenna, you're the second tier podder, saying the top coach that you'd want for your team when in League One, right? He's done really well, Chris, but he didn't even win the league with a massive budget that Plymouth didn't have. So, but taking all that aside, Martin, I think we might get a couple of slappings early on, and it might wake a few fans up because we're playing teams. If you look at the division, like you said earlier, Chris, look across the division. There's no gimme games in there. We're not playing a Forest Green or an Accrington or a Morecambe now, Martin, and beating teams 4-0. Making 4 subs at 70 minutes and seeing out the game. But there's key areas of the team that we still need to recruit. We still need another centre-half because at the minute, we're an injury away from Elkan Baggott might have to play. And good young player, not ready. But this is where, and I was talking to Lewis, messaged me yesterday, where our fans, it's right, someone has a good game in a friendly, and it's like, oh, Elkan Baggott. Oh, we don't need a centre-half, he can play. Oh, we don't need a right-sided centre-half because Don Ball's done really... We're playing in pre-season. This is where fans need to pump the brakes a little bit because...
I've said 6th.
I think we could finish anywhere between 8th and 12th at the minute with what we've got at the minute. If we had 2 or 3 quality players, it could be higher. So I will have Town finishing. I'll have us at 9th at the minute, but with some good signings. And look, it's all about progression, Martin, for me. Let's not run before we can walk. We haven't been in this division for 4 seasons. So we're coming back in it. And I totally agree with what Chris says there. If we were in it last season, I think we probably, with what we've got now, we could make a push for the playoffs. But the league is stronger this year than it was last season.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I was going to say on that is that first of all, where I'd sort of urge a little bit of caution with Town fans is just because the bookmakers have you as fifth favourites, do not look at a mid-table season this season as anything other than a success. Because we've seen enough teams come up from League One and struggle. There's plenty get relegated. And I mean, look, Wolves came up with all of their Mendes links and all of their Portuguese players and all this sort of thing. They only finished 7th. And that a year later was one of the best teams and it pains me to say it, but they were one of the best teams the Championship has ever seen. A year later, they only finished 7th in their first year up. It's not an easy league to come and take by storm. The other thing that looking down the Town squad that I would say is probably something that you could do with addressing in the rest of the window is a bit of Championship experience, because it is a very different league to League One. I think you've got a really exciting young squad, but just that little bit of know-how in there of knowing the division, knowing how to deal with it, because you're going to go to games and they're not going to be anything like what you had in League One. For example, you'll go to Millwall away and you've got to cope with the atmosphere. You've got to cope with the fact that they will not shirk a single tackle. But then you've also got to cope with the fact that unlike teams in League One who play like that, they will have that bitter quality at the other end that will be able to hurt you. And it's just knowing how to stay in games and deal with those sorts of things. I think if you've got a couple of players who really do know the division, I think it could make a huge difference for you.
That's what season. I said from the friendlies we had, Chris. We played Leipzig and we played Bremen, and there was last season we dominated the ball. A lot of games we'd have over 70%. But the games on Friday, we played Leipzig, and it was a 60-minute game. It was a good test for us, because you're going to have times like that this season when we go away to teams like your Leicesters, your Leeds, your Boroughs. You're going to come under pressure, and it's all right when you're playing at home and you've got your home fans, and the sun's shining. I think we need a fast start as well, man. If we can get some points on the board early, I think that's very important. But you're going to go like I totally agree there. You're going to these places. We're going last season to Forest Green. There's probably about 3,000 fans there. You're going to Millwall, they're right on you. They're right on you. Different atmospheres, different quality, Martin. But I think it'll be a positive season. If we finish around 8th, 9th, 10th, somewhere like that, we beat Norwich, who we've not beaten for 14 years. Maybe a decent cup run. That's a decent season for me. We could get in the playoffs. I'm not saying we're not going to, but it's as long as we're progressing as a football club, both on the pitch and off the pitch, it's good enough for me. And don't be disappointed if Town finish mid-table or just above mid-table. I still think that'll be a good season. It's progression onto the next level, and it might be, like I said, a Leif Davis. He might excel this season in this league, and then he might go to the Premier League. But then it's that player trading where we might sell Leif Davis for like 10 million, Martin. Use that money, 2 or 3 signings. So it's going to be hard, but let's not think it's going to go. You go into games and don't be disappointed if we lose a few games, because we only lost 4 games last season, Chris. We're going to lose some games this season. I think we have to factor that in that well.
Absolutely.
I think that's massive. I think one of the problems that it's very easy to have when you've dominated a division the year before is that your fans aren't used to losing games. And I do think this is not directed at Town by any stretch of the imagination. This is directed at football in general. There's a boo culture in football now where we boo every time we lose a game. We boo when it's 0-0 at half time. And I mean, it's something I hate, and I wish we could get out of football, because
booing.
It's the booing at half time, like 0-0. It's booing when you lose a game to a team that are. Would
I say it's entitlement? Because I think a little bit of Town fans. That's a little bit. We had that a few times.
Love a good boo, me.
But there's two teams in every game. I appreciate if there's times when players deserve it, but my point is there seems to be something in football now where people expect to just bounce through the divisions. If you once you get onto a good thing, they expect you to get on a massive roll. Look how many years of building, selling, as you said before, player trading, of selling players and bringing in other players that Brentford did before they got into the Premier League. It's not an overnight success. Brighton the same. Didn't happen overnight for them.
No, you're right.
You've got, and I think what, as you quite rightly say, if as a club this season you can entrench yourself in the Championship, your players can all finish this season going, I honestly can put my hand on my heart and say, I am a Championship quality player at the end of this season. I've held my own and I am good enough. And then you finish, say, where I would have you around about 8th, 9th, something like that.
Okay.
If you then finish there, then it doesn't take a lot, because it's not just buying players who'll get better. Those players from having one season in the Championship will get better going into the next season, because every one of them, to a certain degree, will start the season that has not played at this level before, will start the season with a bit of imposter syndrome and will have to convince themselves that they are a Championship footballer. You won't have that next year. They will either know they're good enough or they're not, and hopefully, if they're not, you'll have moved them on. So I think it's a massive building season for Town. Yes, there's a possibility that you could just romp through and make the playoffs. It's happened before, but I think if you finish, especially anywhere in the top half, it's going to take such a small level of improvement the following season to then kick on and get into that top 6 that I would see it as such a massive, massive springboard for you.
Absolutely, and no surprise to anybody that Moaning Martin finds booing good for the soul. So there we go. A great way to win. This has been a fantastic show. Really in depth, really good knowledge. Chris, thank you so much for jumping on and giving us your thoughts.
My pleasure.
Hopefully speak to you throughout the season. Thank you to that man there as well, Mr. Richard Moss, for, as always, never sitting on the fence until it came to where Town were going to finish, and then he couldn't get his words out for stuttering. Just saying it as it is. But we are back tomorrow, not time to be confirmed, with the marvellous man from Del Monte, Matty Phillips, to go through managers, best one, worst one, in different ones. We'll drop a link so you can get involved and let us know your thoughts as we build up this week now to Sunderland on the horizon, the new Championship season. But this has been Talking Town, the Championship season preview. That is now Albion analysis. Go and check it out. That is the cruncher.
Who have you got first going quickly, Chris?
Blackburn away.
Oh.
Well, yeah, but no, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on there. The talk that Jon Dahl Tomasson might walk. Yeah,
it's going to be an interesting season. It really is, because there's so many variables that will play out throughout the year. But there we go. We're done. We're dusted. Hit the like. Tell your friends, and I'll see you tomorrow.
You make me smile when I think of you. If I get down low and I get blue, I can't get enough. You make me happy, I feel so fine. Oh, how I wish that you were mine. I can't get enough. Hopeless lover. I woke up all soaked in sweat, with chills running down my neck. I thought went crazy from just the thought of you.